Show, WMBD. We're going to talk to Vodka Guy in a minute. Dan's been hurting today, so he's been having trouble getting comfortable, and I want him to do the show completely laying down flat on your back on Monday and just hear you from a distance. Hey, Greg, I'm over here on the bed. So I hope you feel better. You go lay down now. November 3rd of last year, Dan calls me, actually texted me, which is very unusual if anybody knows Dan, and said, hey, I'm not feeling well this morning. I'm not coming in.
I was having stomach problems, but it was on and off, you know. And some men, like, as soon as the car light goes on, they're into the mechanic. Other men are like, it's on and off. Until the smoke actually comes out of the engine, that's when those men go, I should probably get it checked out.
I remember waking up that morning and the night before, I remember Greg then texting me and just saying, I'll tell you more in the morning, but Dan's not coming in.
Next day, the same thing. That was a Thursday, Friday. Then throughout the weekend, I was checking on him. He was still sick. I was like, dude, you should go to the hospital.
Told my son, I go, get Mom, we're going to the hospital. She goes, well, she was going to check in on you. And I go, no, now. And so took me down to the emergency room at St. Francis.
Dense fog advisory still in.
I would say it was really that second day that Dan is gone. It was like, Dan doesn't miss, and every day was harder. I know Greg persevered through that, and Greg is unbelievable. I mean, most people from an outside perspective probably couldn't even tell that, Greg was battling a battle himself.
I'd say by the end of November, I thought he was not going to make it. I did not think he would make it. I went to visit him. He obviously looked terrible, and he felt terrible, and I could see the light dimming.
They prepped me for surgery. Dr. Evans and Dr. Frank came in. Has Dr. Evans been, successful? He goes, 8 straight regional titles. I'm like, okay, I'm in. I mean, at that point, it was like, nothing I can do. Before they got that fluid out, before they put the tube down, they thought it had exploded and it was stage 4. But they found out my appendix exploded. I'm like, back up. I go, don't people die when their appendix explodes? He goes like, oh yeah, all the time. So anyway, we got like, wait a minute, you can't gloss over that.
So 28 days in the hospital, major operation, cancer diagnosis, all those things happened. And so we're scrambling, trying to do the show without him for weeks.
And having someone who is there every day, looking from your left to your right in front of you, and being able to communicate with them and joke with them and everything, and no longer having that right cog, only having the left wheel, it was still just every day, it was still a little bit gut-wrenching.
And then, when he is cleared to come back on the show, he is cleared to come back from home.
Some restrictions may apply. The Greg and Dan Show started 18 years ago, but I've been here 37 years.
Listen to us. You can listen to us on AM 1470, FM 100.3, everywhere using the WMBD radio app.
Common sense.
Our engineering people built a little studio in his house. We call it the Flying D Ranch Studio because it has D's all over for Diorio. And it works seamlessly. In fact, many people, not knowing the whole story, think he's in the studio. I look at him on a screen, he sees me, it works.
So now it was recovery to get my shape back, start walking, and get back so I can get treatment. They just realized there's a couple nodules, one in particular that they wanted to blast for treatment, so they set up me going to Illinois Cancer Care. So Dr. 𝗏𝗏𝗏 walked in, calm as can be, here's what it is, and I'm like, again, another experience where you meet someone who's like, confident, calm, we're gonna take care of this. So I'm like, all right, I full confidence in the whole system, full confidence in Dr. 𝗏𝗏𝗏. Very nervous the first time I went up there. I actually looked forward. They got me a card table so I can do all my prep work and read my computer. I mean, I didn't feel any pain or any side effects or anything. So getting the cancer treatment was nothing. I was asking the doctors, what can I do? They go, well, don't lift because you might get a hernia, But if you want to dabble in the garden, I don't think the pickaxe was recommended though. Early on, I was joking about it. I don't know why. I like to joke about things. Everyone's like, how can he joke about cancer? I'm like, what are you gonna do, crawl in a hole?
Not having Dan for a while was one of those things where you're missing that guy who has those one-liners, right? The guy who can instantly take Greg's point of view and be like, "Wow, Greg."
That's the juice. That's the fun part. That's the part that is hard to replicate with another person. After all these years, he did something just the other day. We were being silly about something, and I was talking about balancing a box of light bulbs, and he goes, "Yeah, and I was poking it with a stick." I knew he was going to say that. I think Dan's sense of humor about this whole journey has been helpful to him. It's helpful to me too, because he's still my friend then. That's the guy I know, and I can't believe it, to be honest with you, that he is now cancer-free.
If it does come back, I know who to talk to. The story is probably the only thing I do, and people kind of recognize or know your story, and they come up and they go, "Do you have cancer?" And I go, "Yeah." But I did pick up on the fact that when they say, "Do you have cancer?" they don't want to hear about your cancer. They want to tell their story. Going in and getting cancer, you're scared to death. But you feel that the nurses up at OSF, and when you go to the cancer center, you meet those people, you feel like you have friends, people to lean on.
So this starts before he was diagnosed with cancer, about a year prior to that. The three of us do a podcast together. And one day, Dan says, "Hey, during the podcast recording today, I've got a surprise for 𝗬𝗏." And he pulls out this little plaque. And it says, "Some people walk in the rain, others just get wet." Dan didn't just get that for me, he also got it for himself in a way. Throughout this process, has truly persevered. I mean, a lot of us might quit. A lot of us might give up. A lot of us might really look in the mirror and say, what are we doing? And Dan wasn't that guy. And Dan right there, I mean, that shows his character to a T.